here because we really want to talk to you guys about our worst experiences at conventions that we've ever had. Because boy, are there a lot of them, you know?
Are there a lot? I feel like the ones that exist in my mind, there's quite a few, but none of them are. Some of them are pretty bad. So I'm okay. Some of them are pretty terrible, but like
Okay.
they're also, I don't want to spoil anything, but okay.
Mm.
Do you want to start off the bat because I can rant for a bit.
Well, I feel like I'm thinking about my bad convention experiences, and honestly, I think that most of them have more to do with like my friend drama
Oh no, that
than
is
anything
literally the worst.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I haven't been going to cons for that long. I started going to FanimeCon in I want to say 2016
Okay.
or something like. No, no, no. I started at SAC Anime,
Oh yeah.
Sacramento Anime Convention, and the very first time I went to a convention, I saw Vic Minog. I
I
never learned how to say his last
Yeah,
name.
he does a lot of voice acting, right? I think I know who you're talking about.
Do you know the
No?
drama with him?
Oh no,
Oh
I don't want to.
God.
Oh, was he the
Oh
one like who blew up
yeah,
online like peak
yeah.
cancel culture?
Accused of
A lot of
no,
things?
accused of sexual
Yeah.
assault.
Oh,
He sexually assaulted a bunch of people.
Yeah, I won't get into that.
Yes.
But it was
Yeah,
at that
yeah.
sack anime.
Yeah, that was the first
Oh.
convention I ever went to, and I remember thinking like hashtag blessed. I'm meeting this guy, he's such a prolific
Yeah.
whatever. And I did meet him and he did offer me the gospel. You know, he likes to record the Bible or
Mhm.
whatever, and he does different voices to like speak the Bible. And he gave that to me and I don't think I took it because I didn't have a CD player with which to
A
play it on, and
CD
that's what he was.
player. Does anyone remember those?
Yeah,
What are those? What are
I know.
CDs? Yeah, oh my
Takes
god.
you
God, I
back,
feel
right?
so old. Oh my.
Yeah, so that was my first convention experience, and then I've only really been to Fanime in San Jose, and then we went to Anime Expo last year
Mhm.
or this summer is like the last convention that I went to. So my experiences are fewer than most, I would say. What about you?
Oh God. So I think my first convention was Anime Expo 2008. And I've been going to cons
Damn.
every year since then, like multiple conventions. We go
Yeah.
to a lot of
Wow.
conventions. Like I think this
Mm.
last year we probably did 6 conventions. And I have
Wow.
one more coming up in November, KomoriCon. We're just going to show up to, do some
Yeah.
like cosplaying and people watching and drinking heavily. And right, that's kind of what you do. The reason why I think I went to my first Anime Expo in 2008, which is wild. I still have pictures from it, and seeing the LA
Mm.
Convention Center basically empty compared to what it was you saw how nuts Anime
Oh,
Expo was,
yeah,
right?
it was
Like you could
crazy this
barely
summer.
breathe in that convention. Like in the artist alley, it felt like you
Yeah.
were in a sauna with
Yeah.
25,000 other people in that one room. But then
Mm.
2008, it felt like there was no one. You could like walk around, and it was almost intimate. To think about Anime
Yeah.
Expo as intimate, it's
It's
kind of a wild like thing to say.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know there's people in the audience who probably have gone to smaller conventions. Maybe you've gone to an Anime Expo pre like 2015 is where it really like blew up, I think.
Mm.
But before that, Anime Expo was really low key. So I actually had
Mm.
really good experiences with the smaller ones. And I remember every so
Yeah.
every nightmare experience I would say I've had with a con has been due to my own folly. And it's usually with one of my cosplays and just not thinking. So I love cosplaying. My first
Mhm.
cosplay was Ichigo, and which is fitting because of
Mm.
the video that I'm filming right now, or at the time of this
Right,
recording.
right, right.
But the first one I did was Mugetsu, his like final form, right at the end when he's fighting Aizen,
Yeah.
and absolutely love it. But I didn't know how to make a costume. So I bought like the
Mm.
cheap black wig, the long black wig or whatever. I did the arm
Yeah.
paint or whatever. Like I'm doing it myself. It's like
Oh.
it looks like a 3-year-old with a Crayola, and then
Oh
I
God.
bought like black material to make his like his gi. It's just like the bottom gi. But then he has like this bandage looking material over his chest,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to make that. So I just used athlete's tape and just taped it.
Oh no, Paul. How much did that hurt taking it off?
It was pretty painful. Not gonna lie, like it gave me like a
Yeah.
slight rash because of the glue, because it was
Ah!
on for so
Oh
long,
no.
right? Like luckily the arm
Oh.
part I used like an ace bandage, I like
Yeah.
learned how to dye stuff, but like I straight up just put
Yeah.
athlete's tape across my chest and stomach. And my best
No,
friends
man.
that we just visited last week, they were in the parking
Yeah.
lot with me, taping me up. I was like, guys, here's a picture.
No.
Here's a picture. Can you make me look like this? We're just taping each other.
Oh.
It was yeah, that was a a fun experience because I got to cosplay the first time, but that was
Yeah.
like not a great experience to think like back on, right? It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I feel like anytime you cosplay for the first time at a con,
it's
it never goes
nothing goes
well.
well. Yeah, especially
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
as someone who cosplays a lot, putting it on at home is very different than wearing it to a convention for multiple hours. So what a lot of people don't realize is when you see cosplayers, they
Mm.
maybe have worn that thing once at home.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
For like an
oh
hour
my
or
god! So here's
two.
an
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
It's another cosplay related one, but
Yeah.
we were at, I think it was PAX West, and this was like
Mm.
2018, 2019, and there was this one lady who was dressed, she's not a lady, she was really young, but she was dressed as like a Warframe character. I don't know if you're familiar with that game.
Mm.
She like
Mm-mm.
full
Mm-mm.
armor, like awesome like helmet, full covered
Yeah.
helmet or whatever, but
Like clearly a lot of
she
effort.
could barely move in it because it was hard armor pieces that was made out of Warbler, and
Oh.
Warbler is like a hard plastic, and she
Yeah.
couldn't see out
Yeah.
of the helmet. And her friend like left her outside to
No.
go get water somewhere, and
No.
she's like just standing there
Oh no.
like for a while. She was there for like 5 or 10 minutes just kind of standing by a rail while people were taking pictures, and I'm like, this isn't right. She's not moving. So I
No.
was like, what's up, what's
Yeah.
going on? So I walk up to her, I was like, hey, are you okay? She's like, and she was like, had to like kind of hold up her helmet because she could barely get it off. She's like, my friend went to go get
Oh.
water and she hasn't come back. I'm like, oh, I'll hang out with you until your friend. It was like 35 minutes later, right? Like literally just chilling, like trying to
No.
help her, like holding up her sign for her and stuff like that. I'm like,
That's
what is
horrible.
this? Like this poor girl
Yeah.
wrapped in armor,
Oh
which
my
is also her
god.
fault for not thinking
Yeah.
about wearing
It's
stuff like
that
that.
through, exactly.
Right.
But yeah.
But then her friend for just leaving her. And I'm like, this happens all
Yeah.
the time at cons,
Yeah.
and granted, it wasn't me who was wearing all of that. So I was very thankful that day. But I'm like, why would you do that to someone? Just like straight up
It
leave them.
You leave them
Yeah.
knowing that they can't go anywhere without you.
No,
Yeah,
no.
that's horrible.
I,
That's horrible.
I think there's been quite a
I feel
few
like
costume mishaps.
Yeah. Well, I feel like with costuming, because it's so finicky in particular and you've got to have the right things on
Hmm.
and you need someone to carry your bag for you or whatever,
Hmm.
the people you have with you are really, really
Yeah.
important. And I feel like that's where it gets weird for cosplay, because I feel like a lot of people who cosplay are not really like used to or maybe as comfortable like asking people for that kind of help,
Hmm.
because what you're basically asking is for someone to follow you around all day and hold your stuff
Yeah.
for you, which
They're that's
is
why
like
they're called handlers, you know?
yeah, yeah, and it's not like a fun thing to ask your friends to do, or it doesn't feel
Yeah.
that way. So it can be kind of like awkward to do that
It
and
is,
feel
but
like you're
I have friends that help, but I also like my favorite cosplay right now is Uzui from Demon Slayer, and I'm gonna be wearing
nice.
that next month as well. But like it's a
Yeah.
super comfortable costume. The only thing that's kind of a pain is his giant swords that I made. But even those I
Yeah.
can just like throw over my shoulder and hold a beer, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not that big of
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've gone around with friends who are like, I'm in like a princess gown. I need you to help me. And like they have like the full ballroom gowns. Even then they're
Yeah.
okay. But I've seen people who are just like they cannot move function without two or three people.
Mm.
And it's a
Yeah.
hard ask. You're like, hey, can I buy you dinner? Can I like pay for your ticket? Like you gotta pay those people. Like
Yeah.
handlers
Yeah.
are super important. But in that same
Yeah.
regard, I think there's a lot of etiquette that goes with the cosplay community. I don't know how it is out in Japan. Have you gone to a con out in Japan yet?
I haven't had a chance because of COVID.
Hmm.
Everything has been totally like shut down.
Yeah.
But I have heard stories and that it's very similar and maybe in some ways a little bit worse than it is. Like I feel like at least at the cons that I went to in California, it was really becoming a thing of like cosplay is not consent. You can't
Yes.
just go up
It's
to people and
huge.
touch them or take pictures. Like you need
The
to
free
like
hugs and all
ask or
that.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have I had heard that in Japan it was a little bit people would just kind of like take advantage of the fact that you're dressed up and like take a picture or whatever. But that's totally hearsay. I have no idea if that's true or not, and I haven't had the chance to kind of like see for myself. But
Which is
um,
interesting because I know there are cultural differences, but I know that
mm,
out here, like if you're going to a con and you're dressed up, you, I don't want to say you should assume, but you should assume that people are just going to take pictures of you, right? You could be
mhm,
like
mhm.
just walking around and somebody just like, oh, just walks by, and I've seen it all the time. They just like,
Snaps a
just snap a
picture.
photo. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's fine. You're in a public
yeah,
space. You're allowed to take photos and video, right? It is what it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
The one thing that I'm like, I've had people who I'll be in full cosplay and like I have a Subway sandwich like halfway down my throat and they're like, "Oh, can I get a picture?" I'm like, "Do you want this picture? Because this is what you're gonna get." Right? I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just simple things like that. And
It's striking a balance of like you can take a picture of me, but I'm not gonna adjust myself to you. You
mhm.
know, like this is you're getting what you're getting.
Yeah,
But
I get it because it
yeah,
happens more often than people think, and
yeah.
those are very few and far between. I think to say which one has been like my worst experience as far as cosplay goes, because we haven't even talked about convention food, because Jesus Christ, don't get me started on convention food. The worst one was unfortunately KomoriCon, right, which I'm going to be going
Mm,
to next month, and I was dressed up. Have you ever seen Ruby? Like
yeah. Well,
RWBY?
I I know what you're referring to. Yeah.
Okay, so the main character, it's the like the red dressed girl, right? I did a crossplay
Yes.
of that
Yes.
where I made like a
Oh,
Ronin version of it. So I did like all the
cool.
like I basically tried to do Ronin warriors, but as
Yeah.
Ruby.
Yeah.
And so I had like all the
Yeah.
arm guards and everything, and I had like this, the giant like belt over the chest, and I was bare chested, but and I had like a robe like that came probably like to right about here for the cloak, and I made
Yeah.
her weapon that actually like opened up and shot Nerf darts and like the whole 9 yards, right? It was insane.
Whoa,
I
that's
had there's
cool.
actually a
What's
video
the catch here?
there. So at KomoriCon, I was bare chested, and
Yeah.
they asked me to like, hey, you have to cover up your nipples, because we're in this space, and I'm like, okay,
Okay.
I get it. What, it's your rules, but the convention center, the rules are not by them. This is KomoriCon's rules.
Mm.
So at PAX
Mm.
or whatever, you're fine. You can be like
You can
a
do
Demon
whatever you
Slayer
want.
character,
Yeah.
right? Like oh my god, why is his name escaping me? Pretty boy Boarhead, not
Oh,
Inosuke, right? Yeah,
Inosuke. Yeah.
Inosuke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
dress up like him and no one's gonna say anything. But the
Mhm.
kicker is they asked me to cover up. So I'm like, oh, how do I do this? Like, I literally don't have anything. So I pulled the cloak further
Yeah.
down and kind of like tucked it into the belt. And so it just covered to right here. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
dumb. But while I'm doing this, two people dressed up as Mario and Peach in BDSM gear, like with like
No.
full on like thong all up the butt, right? Like on a
Oh.
chain, and they only had pasties on, right? So
Oh
yeah, oh
no.
yeah. So they're like everything
So
is
they're okay.
yeah, and they were okay. And I'm like looking at them, I was like, bro, how about that? I was like, there's a 3-year-old
Mm.
right there. So me
Yeah.
basically in a bathing suit, because that's what that
Yeah.
is not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's fine.
But
And I'm
this is
like, I
okay.
was like, I'm just gonna go home. I don't even want to support
Yeah.
this con anymore. I
Yeah.
get it. It's their rules because of whatever, maybe because they just don't want nipples out.
Nah,
But I'm
man.
like, bro, her boobs are
This
literally
is where you
hanging
get in
out.
problem.
Yeah.
This is where you get in trouble with dress codes.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a dress code, it's always like it's going to be unfair for someone,
hmm
and it's like I don't know.
my
I'm
thing is,
I'm not a
so
fan of
so
dress codes.
I kind of got a little ticked off. I will admit, I got
Mm.
really snarky, and I'm like, okay, so if I come back next year and I put little leaves over my nipples and my junk, I'm okay. I'm allowed in. And they're like,
I'm
well,
okay.
technically, yeah. I'm like, what? Why is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this is not okay.
See, they need to go back and check their dress code rules,
Yeah,
and if they're gonna have a dress code, they need to like really think it through
yeah.
because and like think about who their clientele is and who's coming
I'm like,
and like
this is an
the
anime
normal
convention, right?
behavior.
Like, having somebody
Yeah.
who's basically in a male bathing suit is, to me, is not a big
Yeah.
deal. I don't know. Either way,
No.
that to
Yeah.
me was just dumb.